just want to make sure that just want to thank again for this platform. As a mentor, I am also learning a lot. So it's a two-way stream, never a one-way stream. And yes, definitely, it's a nice Saturday morning here, and my wife is just waiting for this session to finish. So probably we can go out in the afternoon somewhere. But jokes apart, let me get started right away. And one thing for every participant, yes, as Sayamji was mentioning, and it's a discussion forum. I am using a few slides, but don't treat this session as like just a lecture. I literally have like 7 or 8 slides, and my goal would be to actually finish those slides in within 15-20 minutes. So most of our time actually goes in the question and answer session. I do have listed a few questions that you guys have already filled up in some of you.
मेरा वो सेशन चालू हो गया.
Sorry, can the participants mute their line? So speak only when you have a question, and then that would be the best for everyone. So with that, let me get started right away. I'll just give a bit more background of my career journey and focusing more on the data science part of it, like how I evolved my career post my graduation. So and the reason I'm going to do this because it has correlation with the next slide and few pages in terms of my own assessment of the whole industry, how it has come up depending on my roles across the corporate world in last 12 to 13 years. So I started in amid last recession, 2009. I started my first job out of campus with a company called MarketRx. By the time I joined, it was acquired by Cognizant. It was a small company started by a few IIT folks who are my seniors, but by the time, as I said, it was acquired by Cognizant. What we were doing at that time was actually supporting big pharma companies like AstraZeneca and handling their marketing and sales strategies. So my career started into data space, and again, it was my role was actually to build response models for those marketing campaigns, whether it's digital, like email or other kind of campaigns, or like even the field campaigns. Like even there, we used to design response models, and based on that, we used to figure out like okay, where we need let's say we used to have I think 300 sales people at that time for our particular project. So our goal was like, okay, how do we best use our mathematics to figure out where those 300 sales force can be deployed to get the maximum ROI. So that was my initial first 1.5 years or so in the space, how to use the data to define marketing and sales strategies. Post that, I moved to American Express. I stayed there for almost 10 years, ranging, typical a corporate career from analyst to director. I think I got like 4 or 5 promotions during 10 years. And I held a variety of roles, mainly starting with risk management. I stayed in risk management for 4 or 5 years, and then I dwelled a couple of years in marketing, and then another couple of years in product. And I'll take a moment to again explain what exactly I did. As a bank, American Express has a main job of actually extending credit. Their main products are credit cards. So my role when I joined American Express for first few years was actually to determine who to give this card, basically the eligibility, who is eligible to get one of our cards, and if they're eligible, how much credit line they should be getting. And you can imagine we used a lot of mathematics behind the scenes in terms of developing the underwriting criteria, who to give the product, who to not give the product, and determining the right line of credit for each customer. And that was very data intensive and very analytics heavy role. And then I moved to marketing and product as I grew kind of saturated with that particular business domain of risk management. In the marketing side, again, with Amex, we were marketing our cards as well as some non-card products. When I say non-card, Amex has traditionally been into credit card business, but they started with some of their lending or other, like for example, business loans or personal loan kind of products. So we started doing marketing for that. And from there, I kind of switched from marketing to product. Product analytics at that time when I switched back in 2018, it was comparatively a nascent idea into finance space. Tech companies were very big on product analytics rather than focusing on marketing. They were focusing more on product. Like if you create your product or make your product better, you don't have to invest that much on marketing. That was the motto tech companies had, but not so much in finance. And in finance, we kind of thought like, okay, let's just start our product analytics division and figure out like, how best we can create or enhance our products, so that, we can rely comparatively less on marketing. And it's a combination of both. So that's where I kind of got a blood of like product analytics. It kind of helped me. So across the 10 years, the whole experience of risk management, marketing, and product kind of made me the right guy for Biz to Credit, kind of a company who is a comparatively small company, about 10 to 12 years in the industry. I think they have like 100 to 200 people. I think now they have like 300 people across the globe. Uh, but I ended up leading their data science division altogether, directly reporting to the CEO. And I was supporting all the CXOs across sales, risk management, marketing, as well as other capital markets and whatnot. And my roles in Amex across different domains kind of helped me. And as I said, I was in the right spot that I could lead the data division as well as I could support every vertical, because I had some experience of every vertical. My journey was, however, short, because I got poached by Facebook with like unexpected offer, and like it was just too great to refuse, kind of an offer. um, so and yeah, Facebook kind of gave me a great opportunity to choose my career stream as well. They were very open, and it was kind of a ticket for me to try something new, because as you can imagine, last 10 years I was doing finance, and they offered me like, okay, I can choose whichever vertical, whichever domain I want to go into, as well as as I grew in Amex, as in any career, you would gain more leadership roles and you have a bigger teams. So eventually, after a point, any senior leader's role is mimics more of a HR person's role versus more of a data scientist role. So I was feeling that, okay, I'm not really doing the groundwork anymore, and my job is more about project management or HR management, but less so of actual data science work. So Facebook kind of offered me a ticket for that also. Instead of leading a 10, 15, 20 people team, I actually joined Facebook, and Facebook offers this parallel pathing where I could join them as an individual contributor, but at a very senior level. I have the same level of responsibilities, but I have to individually kind of carry them forward. So I thought like it's going to be a great challenge. The reason I'm mentioning that, because a lot of titles are flown around across different companies, and for us, for aspiring professionals, the idea is not to get confused by different kind of titles used by different companies. For example, I was director in Amex, but a manager in Visto Credit, and an individual contributor in Facebook. But I can say that the responsibilities and pay and everything else was increasing as I grew, but the titles used were very, very different. So with that, I'll go to the next page. Now, data science as a career, and why I believe it's one of the most rewarding career, especially in current times. It's an ever evolving domain. At least in last 10 years, I have seen, I mean, it's evolving every day, but I would say at least 2 or 3 times I have seen very drastic changes in terms of new skills that people have to adapt in order to even survive. For example, when I started, a lot of us were still just started coding in SQL and SPSS and whatnot, and suddenly SAS was pretty much required for any professional to actually build decent predictive models. And people who didn't know SAS or were not willing to learn kind of were pushed away for slightly lower paying or lower expected jobs within this space. And I have seen this again, like a couple of years back, or probably 3 years back, then when SAS is now outdated and Python has taken over the world in terms of the skills that are required. So yeah, I think it's more of technical side. Even on the technique side, we used to rely more on like logistic and basic decision trees and card and whatnot 10 years ago. But now, even if you talk about those things in a meeting room, you may be frowned upon by your partners in marketing or product. So yes, and the reason is that now it's easier than ever to actually apply machine learning algorithms to different kind of problems, which actually give you better results. So yes, it's more easier, and I've seen the way it has evolved. I mean, we used to take like 3 months earlier in 10 years ago to actually build a regression model. Now it's like, if given sufficient time and prioritization, probably one can build a very good quality ML model within a week. So that's the difference we have in terms of everything, not just technology, skill set, the whole platforms, and the whole idea of reception by partners that yes, this thing works, and yes, we should invest in it. So the whole thing has evolved. It is one of the field that has definitely attracted higher wages, driven by definitely acute shortage right now. As I speak, because last couple of years, I myself have had a hard time acquiring new talent in this field. And when I say new talent, obviously, the skilled talent who actually understands the domain a bit. And that's why, if you're really at a high level, if you're interested in this space, I would suggest that yes, go into it. Uh, Try to learn a few basic skills and start from there. And once you cross a certain threshold of your skill set, you will have as many takers as you cannot even imagine. And yeah, one of the occupational hazard of this profession is that you have a critical and structured thinking for everything in your life. You don't accept anything. So even if you read a newspaper, or if you need, your mother-in-law says something, you would start dissecting each and every word and understanding it rationally, whether it makes sense or not. Is it a comparison, correlation? So that's the occupational hazard I should warn you about. That you become very, very critical as a person, and very structured and critical thinking is like an occupational hazard. So yeah. And it just one more thing. I know wages generally attract more to the younger population. Wages also vary. I can't make a blanket statement like how rewarding the field is, but I can definitely say based on my experience that um, depending on the company, like big tech companies like Facebook or Google or sort, they are engineering focused companies. So obviously software engineering roles generally get slightly higher pay versus data scientists, but it's still like on an average, the pays are very, very high. I don't want to put any actual number, but you can say that, company like Facebook, their majority of workforce would be either engineers or data scientists. So that's it. And for companies like, from my own experiences, Amex and whatnot, their data science is more clubbed with strategy teams, not so much with engineering teams, because that's where you're actually driving more strategy rather than just getting something coded into the system. There also the pay is pretty good, as well as you have a ability to actually learn across the domains and apply your skill across the domains. So one day you could be talking to a marketing head, the other day you could be talking to the sales head or product head, and you could learn from them the business context that they are using. And that's in fact one of the fundamental things as a data scientist you should have, the business context. With that, let me move on. So next question is why data is the new oil, and I again feel like for next 10 to 20 years, roles of data science and data engineering related fields are not going away. Based on my own experience, I have worked across at least three domains, which is product, marketing, and risk. Um, so the kind of questions that companies need to solve, like for example, product, how to create or enhance new products. In my current case, I'm leading the youth safety division for Instagram. So the kind of questions we have is that, okay, how do we shape the nature of our product? And when I say product, let's assume Instagram itself is an app. So there are different kind of features in it. As a user, you can use those features. We call those features as products. So now how can we change those features so that the minors or the teen or the youth population or a platform feels more safer? So that's our goal. We are not optimizing for ROI, we're optimizing for safety. Now, one way could be that, okay, right now, if any minor joins the platform, let's make their profile private by default. So that's the product decision we have taken. The product experience have changed for them. So that's just one high level example that's public, but we do a lot of things behind the scenes which are generally, a lot of things are not public, a lot of things are public depending on the product idea. Sometimes we do, as you say, surgical strikes. We identify some potential violators who may, be making the environment unsafe for kids or young population, and we identify vulnerable young population and kind of create frictions on the platform so that they don't find each other. But that's more behind the scene, and you might not see that publicly. But yeah, publicly we do make some high level changes also, depending on how we assess that this kind of a change will actually make will this change actually help us achieve our goal. And one occupational hazard of any data scientist would be to think of everything in terms of precision and recall. Like, okay, if you do X to achieve Y, what is your precision? Like how much you're actually able to do it, and what is your recall? Like, so those two things maybe I'll explain later on, but that's another hazard. So product is like that, like, you enhance product. Marketing is again, as I said, it's probably across different sectors. People want to build the best marketing strategies, but generally the budgets are limited, and that's why we want to make sure that, okay, we are reaching out to the right people with the right method as well as with the right content. So all three of these decision making can happen with the use of the data to figure out who are the highest responsive segments, who are the people who depending on the content, like which content gets the most response and so on. So that's the kind of marketing analytics, and a lot of work goes there. Risk is something a lot of big banks are focused, not just big bank, it's a big thing in fintech, how to identify customer or low risk customer and where to extend credit and what price. So that's the whole soul of risk, and where a lot of data actually gets used. So with that, hopefully I've set the context, like how and why big companies, and not just big companies, even smaller companies are using data for different kind of problems. And these are the three major segments that I have worked on. Obviously there are more, but I'm going to skip them for now. Moving forward quickly, what industry wants for young professionals if you're looking, and I know in our audience we have a mixed bag of some young professionals as well as some entrepreneurs. So right now focusing a bit more on young professional side, like what kind of skills they need, and how to think about different kind of jobs. And then I'll also probably focus in Q&A, if you're an entrepreneur or in your company, how best to strategize your data, data domain. So, okay, what industry wants? In terms of, again, I have worked mostly in big companies, except for Best to Credit. So different companies have different, obviously different, hiring strategy and variety of skill sets are required. In fact, even the title of a job would be very, very different in one company versus other. So it's always good to actually go there and actually look at the title and figure out like what exactly do they want, because the requirement could be very, very different. If I have to still classify among the spectrum of these, data related, data science or data engineering jobs, I'll probably put a cut and say like, okay, some of the jobs can be classified more towards engineering. Some of the jobs can be classified more towards actual data science, as I call data science. And this is probably the definition that big tech companies are using. But and I'll probably dwell into it for 2 minutes, and then I'll say why different companies use different definition. So data engineers in a company like Facebook, again, it can be further classified into two. Core data engineers, their work would be to actually create data lakes, pipelines, tables, make sure that the data is actually collected, stored, and properly. So and it can be accessed properly by a lot of data science and software engineers, either to make models out of it or to do any analysis. And trust me, when the company gets bigger, you need a core data engineer to actually support this kind of infrastructure. The second part is like and again, it's a slightly niche, but a very high rewarding and high and comparatively difficult skill set, leveraging or you building ML models, that too at a production level for companies like where your impact is bigger. So making sure that ML models don't take much space, still run. For example, when I was in American Express, every time you use your credit card, within a few seconds, maybe 1 or 2 seconds, you may even see in your POS machine that it says like card approved, and then you take out your card. But behind the scene, a lot of mathematical ML models are running. I built that one of the models, and you can imagine every day billions of transactions are being made. So we are actually analyzing each and every transaction to calculate the probability of default for that transaction, and basis on that we are approving that transaction, and that's what you see on the POS machine. But the idea is to actually analyze all those transactions within fraction of seconds, so that the customer experience is not bad, and they don't feel like, oh, card is not working, or card is taking long time to, because they have to swipe and it should work within a few seconds and move on. So that's where the niche skill set of ML modeling is very, very important, not just to make a good high precision, high recall ML model, but to also make sure that it actually runs very fast. So that's the skill, it's probably one of the highest end skill in the data science space that one can attain, building ML models, building deep learning models and whatnot. I would say, and the traditional job of data scientists, as big companies have defined, it's more about experimentation and measuring and strategizing. So, and that's where you need a lot of background around math and stats as well, beyond basic coding experience, so that you can actually figure out, okay, how to look at the raw data. And as you can see that oil in itself may not be a currency, but the oil, when oil is processed, then it starts giving you revenue, because every processed version of the oil is actually valuable. Similarly, data scientists are like refineries. They actually look at the raw data, which in itself has absolutely no value. Uh, but when it starts getting processed, then you start unlocking the value of that data through different things. So, for example, I'll take one more example here. I've recently joined, in fact, just yesterday, officially I joined one company as a board member and investor. It's a Delaware-based company, although the founders sit in Indore in India, and they do have a lot of data. But in their recent valuation of $50 million, and they recently raised 3 million at 50 million valuation, they have not even used they only the traditional way of calculating a company's value is based on its revenue, and currently their revenue is all from, it's a SaaS company, it's all from subscription to their customers. They do have a lot of data, but right now they don't have any way of unlocking that power. Founders have that understanding that, okay, we have a lot of data and it has a lot of power, but they are not able to sell it to investors right now, because right now it's a black box, it has no value. So now we are actually trying to unlock that data, figure out like, okay, now that we have this data, what kind of different use cases can be there, different products can be created, or different partnerships can be done, and through that we can unlock value, generate more revenue, and that's how your values of the company will grow more. So that's where a brain of a data scientist will go in figuring out, okay, how to analyze or earn value from this data. And now, quickly moving on, okay, what skills one should focus on if you are a young professional? I would say three basic skills for any data scientist: coding, focus on SQL, that's must have. If you're done with SQL, then start basic Python, very high level pandas, and couple of starting things are good enough to crack the field. Maths, have basic understanding of probability and statistics, including hypothesis testing and high level regression. No need, if you're starting, no need to go into ML space yet. And communication. At the end of the day, if you're looking for any job, those skills you can still learn on the job while you are at it. Communication is something that you have to start today, not like when you start the job. You have to start working on it today. So those three things are very, very important. Communication, generally we kind of tend to give less important. Many times people are focused more on learning SQL or learning probability and whatnot, but at times in actual career, even trying to talk to your partners and understanding their business problems is more important than actually be able to apply fancy ML algorithm. So that's why I would say communication is more and more important. With that, I may want to skip this portion. This is more of a recruiting process example, how different companies recruit. But I think different companies have different ideas. Some may have online, offline coding. Some may ask for case studies, puzzles, etc. But I'll skip that one, given the composition of our audience. I'll skip this one also. It's again a sample case study I had for young professional. Like for example, if you apply for FB, what kind of questions do they ask? And the questions are generally open-ended. Like, okay, we have a hunch that young people are leaving Facebook because their parents have joined. How do we confirm or deny it? So you have to kind of as I was saying earlier, you have to kind of be very, very critical of the sentence, and you have to be very, okay, how do you define young people? You said like, we have a hunch that young people are leaving. What do you mean by young people? And then the interviewer will say, okay, now let's say 18, less than 18, because you could say like, okay, even at 50 years I'm young. What do you mean by that? So you define young people. Okay, now you define young people to parent relationship. How do you even know that their parents have joined? Because the question is, because of their parents joining, they're leaving. But you have to first establish that that their parents have joined. So how do establish that? So there are different ways of doing that. Whether hire a human team who actually labels those pairs and figure out that yes, they are parents, or create some kind of a proxy model to figure out close family and whatnot. And then eventually you move to a cohort comparison, like, okay, we have a young people whose parents have joined versus young parents whose parents didn't join. And then eventually you figure out, like, okay, how do you define if you have to confirm like engagement have gone down or they're leaving? What do you mean by leaving? Are they leaving like altogether? They're not even coming back to Facebook to log in, or they are like, reducing their engagement. So this is how, traditionally any business problem is dissected for each and every word of it from a data science perspective. And as you can imagine, this kind of becomes a habit as you grow natural in this field, and this is exactly what is expected from a seasoned career data scientist, more so from being actually able to develop a model or not. They are more expected to actually be able to dissect each and every problem and create that framework. That is very, very important. With that, I'll take a pause. I know it was a long monologue. I'll take a pause and I'll start taking questions. I do have 6 or 7 questions from before. Maybe I can start with that, or maybe I'll take a pause and see like if I have any question in the chat box. Maybe I'll start with a few questions that I had already. So one question I had was like, okay, scope and future of the data industry, which I've kind of already covered. That yes, it's a very one of the very high-paying field. The kind of roles people are in nowadays, you can imagine of even becoming like a chief of data science or chief data officer for a company. So that's the zenith of this. And in terms of future growth, yes, a lot of big companies have realized the power of unlocking their data, and they are able to actually afford good quality data scientists and engineers to unlock that value. But nowadays a lot of tools and techniques are becoming more democratic, and a lot of smaller companies who now have access to good quality or decent quality data are in that journey. So generally any company's adaptation will increase from like collection of the data. When they're starting a space, their focus would be to actually collect as much as possible the quality data. You cannot just keep collecting any data, because it's like sometimes it's not like new data is new information. Many times more data or new data is not new information. So you want to be surgical around like what kind of data you really want to gather and store, because everything has a cost. Collecting has a cost, because you can't collect everything. Your customers might feel it's a infringement on their privacy, or you have to store it, so there's a storage cost. uh, and similarly, you have to process it. If it's huge data, then you need actually big data capabilities, so that's a technology cost, and so on. So you have to be very surgical in terms of what kind of data you think might be valuable in future, and that's why you keep storing it. From there the companies generally evolve, like, okay, now that we have stored some level of data, but like it's all over the place. For example, we have stored all the chat data with our sales rep. How do we make sense of it? Is it even required? Is it even useful? Do we continue to store it? So that's when you need some kind of principles around cleaning that data, figuring out like how much value you can actually add from these kind of data. How do we store it, this kind of text data, in tabular format or in JSON format, so that eventually engineers or data scientists can actually probably create an NLP kind of a model to read this data. So all those questions as an entrepreneur might be important, or even as a career aspirant might be important for you. And in each and every step, a data professional is required. And as I was saying earlier, depending on your bent of mind, if you're more towards engineering side, yes, data engineering jobs are there. If data architectures, building tables, those kind of things fascinate you, yes, that's the space. If business fascinates you more, like how the business strategies are being made, then the core data science space is the space you should target. But yeah, that's the scope and future. At the very minimal, when I myself started my career, a lot of time I was just told to kind of create dashboards. That's a very starting job, like kind of at least do the tracking and measurement of what's exactly going on. From there itself you can diagnose a lot of problems and then suggest improvements. So that's the starting point for any analyst or data science professional. But as you grow, you can always grow in different fields, different domains. Keep continuing enhancing your skills. Um, any? Okay, I have a few questions. I'll Is automation or RP a threat to the future of data science? I think that's a great question. If automation is going to be a threat to data science, for example, a lot of platforms have come up where you don't have to code and you can actually you know unless you're a big company where you especially need those engineers or ML engineers, most things can be automated. So yes, for example, if I have to build an machine learning algorithm, sometimes it eventually I see like maybe 5 years down the line, hopefully it should become more mechanical that someone prepares a tool, I just upload my data and right now, for example, machine learning algorithms, like 5 years ago we used to actually iterate different parameters to fine tune our decision tree or like a SVM or whatnot. But now there are a lot of functions people have built like grid search, so it automatically searches the right parameters for your tree to be more precise. So what I'm trying to say is that yes, some of the things can get automated, but in my mind, the core data science part, that to unlock the value from the data and figure out like, okay, how best it can add value, it will never go away. If anything, net of everything, I think data science as a career field for next 10 to 20 years is slated to increase only. So I personally feel no worries about my own career growth, and that's what I would say for young professionals also. Uh, Currently providing, but I want to give insights along with the dashboard that I'm building using Tableau. How can I develop analytical thinking? So, great question again. As I was saying that initially for any data scientist or analytics to start their career, creating dashboards, creating visualization is very, very important. It may feel tedious job at the start, but you can backtrack from there. Uh, from there, you can figure out and possibly use as much as automation as possible so that those dashboards are created automatically, and rather than refreshing or updating them yourself, you should build or start building coding, whether it's as simple as in if these are Tableau, then probably it is already automated. If it's even in an Excel-based dashboard, you could learn a bit of a macro and automate them so that your time actually gets free more into actually looking at those trends, figuring out why there are breaks, and if there are breaks, how they relate to the actual business. And from there, you can actually go more into like, okay, diagnosing the problems. And then from there, you can figure out like, okay, now that we have a problem, what kind of product or a fix can we make to fix that problem? So that's the journey as a data scientist or analyst you should start. The more senior you get, the more better quality of work in terms of like you actually solving that business problem, you'll get that opportunity. So yeah. uh, okay, maybe people are still shy, so I'll take probably one more question from the original list. uh, I think one question came up whether we should do a master's degree or should do some kind of a certificate. I'll be very open. I'm not an expert career guide here. Different companies have different requirements. I have seen a lot of people who completed a master's actually were able to get a better job. But I would not again make a blanket statement, because at the end of the day, companies look for skills. Yes, sometimes it is possible that having a master degree or having a certain certificate would help you shine from among other candidates. So in that sense, yes, that is something you should pursue. And for each case by cases, the answer could be different. For someone, pursuing a master's may not be important enough because their bachelor degree or their bachelor courses are good enough to actually crack into the field. For them, I would suggest just continue and grow from there. For some people, I would suggest yes, masters may be the right choice for you, but it's a very unique and individual to you kind of a conversation. In terms of certificate, I was never a big fan of any kind of a certificate in past. Personally, I have been recruiting for at least 6 years, 7 years, 2014 till 2022, maybe 8 years now. I've been recruiting since then in some form and capacity. I have never looked at anyone's XYZ certificate in data science as an edge. I generally look for other things in the career, or like what exact projects people have done. So, for example, I think a couple of years back when I was recruiting for Bistro Credit, I hired folks from Columbia Business School here, and uh, I don't remember looking at their certificate, but I did remember looking at their Kaggle questions. Like, people do actually go online and find platforms like Kaggle, actually solve the business problems there, write their own code, learn from hundreds of thousands of code people have already written there. They copy paste, some of that and put some of their own brain, and eventually, create their own personalized solution to a given problem, which may or may not be perfect. And they write that in their CV. And to me, that was more important. Like, okay, they've gone out, they've tried, different approach, and what was their approach. And you would be surprised. Like, I received like 10 CVs from Colombian. Almost everyone kind of wrote about one problem around a Titanic problem. It's very common problem on Kaggle.com. Like, how would you predict a survivor in Titanic depending on their information beforehand. So that's a very common problem. Depending on your age, wealth, blah blah blah, XYZ things, you could figure out, like, that yeah, there are chances of survival are higher. So, but everyone came up with a different solution, and then it kind of makes sense for an interviewer to actually, for me to ask them, like, okay, what was your approach? What do you think that you've done differently, or you think that's more important? So I would say, rather than chasing a certificate, chase a skill set. Yes, one or the other certificate may be good and may be recognized in the industry. I am not the right person. I have not recruited based on certificates. So again, I'm not devaluing all certificates. Not all are made alike, but I frankly don't know much. So, okay, how about cloud computing? Again, the same question that, again, I have never hired based on certificates, so I can't comment on it. Uh, if you think that that particular certificate based on reviews and whatnot is important to learn the skills, then go ahead. Um, how much graduation branch matters in data science career? Not at all. I'm from civil engineering, and I did my master's in environmental engineering. And till fourth year, or like, early fifth year, I had no clue that I'm gonna go into data science. Only when I started liking, especially during my master's courses, I started liking statistical and whatnot analysis. Then I started learning about, okay, what are the what is this domain, and can I just shun my civil engineering? And it was a tough call, because you learn 4 years or 5 years some a particular aspect of engineering, and you're leaving that. It was a tough call, but I took that because I got more interested into application of the data and whatnot. So uh, it's always easy to change to. I mean, I myself changed my career multiple times across industries and across the skill set. So I guess whoever is posing this question, somehow it's very easy. It's just in your head. Move. People who have, like, history background or geography or philosophy background are doing machine learning today. So if you say you're an engineering engineer from mechanical, and you say, like, okay, am I out of the field? Not at all. You're expected, like, this is like, you're not even an outlier here. So yeah, I mean, engineering and probably economics degrees, I would call them as, tailor made for data science kind of a job. Any other job, any other education which doesn't involve any mathematics, I would say yes for them. It's a valid question, like, how best we get into this. But if you have any engineering, any economic course, then you are into it. uh, I want to take one question from beforehand. I know, because some of the entrepreneurs have joined as well. So one of the questions was like, okay, if I have to make my own startup, how do I do it? So there are multiple ways to create your own startup around, data. And I'll be very open with you, like, and I've tried ideas on my own, but obviously acquiring data skills, whether it's, data engineering, data science, is one part of actually creating your own business. Um, Creating a business or creating a startup is beyond that. As I said, if you are a seasoned data professional, you could possibly take a consulting project and make some data science models for your clients. But if you have to really scale, and then probably that kind of a work can scale enough to supplement, or to actually replace your full day full job, and you could become an independent consultant. That's possible. A lot of people do that. But if you really want to scale, you may have to hire more people, train more people into data science, and eventually, you have limited days or limited hours in the day. So you have to eventually, step away from your own core data science job and train people to do that. And that's where leading people and people leadership skills, communicating with your stakeholder, those skills are more important than hardcore data skills where you're building one of the fantastic models. So that's why, as I was saying, like it's a bit different. Um, Being a data professional yourself versus creating a data centric company. And obviously you can think of this was a service model example. You could think of a product model example as well. You could come up with a product idea from based on the data. You could come up with and you end up building a product, but you will definitely need some help from a software engineer to actually uh, develop your data product into more of a actually create some kind of a wrapper so it's easy for front end user to actually use it, and make sure the data security is there. So you need definitely some engineering part there, and then you also need your connections, your sales team who actually calls, or maybe just cold calling, or maybe calling to your contacts and telling them like, okay, this kind of product is useful for them. When I was leading the data science division in Bistro Credit, I used to get call almost every day from at least one or two smaller companies trying to sell their data products. Some were like a cheap copy of Tableau, for example, and some were actually very good data products in terms of that could help us automate bunch of things we were doing manually. So yes, there is a huge scope out there. I know a lot of people who have tried and failed, and I know a lot of people who have tried and actually succeeded a lot. One of my colleague, he founded this company a few years ago called Sigmoid, and they are one of the leading data science company right now in New York. So yes, there are some success stories, there are some failure stories, but good part is that there are stories. And when you fail, it's not permanent. You can always go back to a job, or you can always use that experience somewhere else. So again, but yeah, at the minimum, you need to have some understanding that how this whole industry works, and what different skill set, even if you're not doing on your own, what skill set you need to acquire, whether you hire that person or partner with them and whatnot. uh, my coding skills are not great. Okay, I like this question from Arpit. Even I felt that my coding skills are not that great when I was in college. But when I went into the professional world, I realized that okay, it's better than others. And then that confidence started growing up. Now I don't think about it that much. And especially and nowadays, coding skills are nothing but copy pasting skills. So if you know how to search the right thing in Google, that's probably 90% of the coding skill that you need, even for a job like Facebook or Apple or Google or anywhere in the world, because there is always a better way of doing things. And that better way is already probably available online. So what you need to do is understand the problem, what you want to do. For example, I learned Python 3 4 years ago, and I didn't learn it from scratch. I learned it by putting it together. I need to do XYZ thing, and I know that I could do it in quickly in SAS or SQL. But if I have to do it in Python, I need to know what exactly should I search in Google. Like, okay, how to do this thing in Python, and Google will tell me, Stack Overflow, a bunch of links. My ability to actually parse those 4 or 5 links quickly within 5 minutes and figure out which portion of the code is going to work for my use case is the ability that every company is looking for. You don't have to come from scratch. I'll give another example of Facebook. In Facebook, every code is shared with everyone. I don't write any original code. I just Google up, like not Google, like I search internally in the internal portal. And the quality I need is like, okay, I need to do XYZ thing. And throughout the company in their history, they have everything there in the catalog. So I can literally go there and search by the keywords and read their codes quickly. Okay, this is the portion probably is going to work for me. So yes, you need those kind of skills, and then copy paste that one, patch your own, and eventually you create your own code that actually helps next 100 engineers or data scientists that are gonna learn from your code. So that's how this whole thing works. uh, I would recommend, yeah, I mean, sometimes classroom programs are good. I mean, I've been talking to a few people who are creating courses in this field. Earlier, as I said, I was not a big fan of certificate courses, especially if they're paid ones. But lately I figured like, okay, even if you have to pay a bit but you're getting a lot of structured content, then probably it's worth it. So yes, Udemy, I like, they have a lot of good courses. I know a lot of people in my team did it. In Amex, in fact, we used to reimburse up to $100 or something yearly, or I'm not sure exactly, but for our team members if they want to pursue a course from Udemy, because I remember they used to have good courses. YouTube is definitely a good resource even today. Sometimes I myself Google or YouTube because sometimes young folks have come up with creative ideas to do a certain things. So it's always good to for example, very pertinent example. Right now, let's say you have to do a time series prediction. A lot of time, the traditional way of to time series prediction is to use Arima or FB Prophet. Those are like univariate time series predictions, and every classroom program will teach you that, and people in the industry would think, yeah, this is the best way of time series prediction. But in reality, your data is never ever ready to apply those algorithms, because those algorithms are very particular to actual data, which is very periodical, which has a seasonality, which is a trend, very ideal kind of a data where you can apply those techniques and the output comes. And that's probably what you're going to learn in a classroom program, and to their credit, that's what they're gonna do, right? They're not gonna tell you the edge cases. But in reality, in actual world, your data is never seasonal. Like you have to figure out, like, okay, on top of seasonality, there are a lot of other factors. So your data is not ideal to apply those, ready-made packages. So you have to be very innovative. Like, okay, if that's the case, but it's not a unique problem. A lot of industries, a lot of people have encountered this. So what are they doing? And if you Google, if you YouTube, you'll get different ideas. Like, okay, maybe you can try a machine learning algorithm, but treat it differently so that you end up predicting a time series. So and Google and YouTube would actually give you that kind of idea that people have tried this in their unstructured data and it actually worked for them. So maybe you can also try that approach. And at the end of the day, in classroom they can tell you, like, okay, this is the problem, this is the solution. In real life, neither the problem nor the solution is defined. First half of your job is actually to define a problem, later half is actually to figure out what solution fits for your problem. So that's the whole job of a data scientist.
Rajalji, there was a question from Deepak. That one I think we missed. For finance professional, we use standard finance metrics. Any suggestions or course which help us to create an edge? Okay.
Again, in finance professional, I believe standard finance metrics. Maybe I want to get a few more details, Deepak. If you're online, you can probably unmute and speak as well.
Yeah. So Rajil, thank you so much. I come from a finance background, so we use the evaluation metrics or how to evaluate the business. But when you are talking on the data, like how you use at your MX or the Facebook, so if you can guide us like some of the metrics which we can also use in our business evaluation or the finance point of view, so this can be useful.
Got it. So Deepak, let me be very open with you on the finance side, like and the core finance side that you are from.
Yeah.
Like, for example, metrics like DCF and whatnot, like the traditional or forecasting metrics that you might be using for revenue estimations. I wouldn't say any data scientist would replace those metrics or those those metrics or measures. But I can, for example, I remember working closely with my own MXS finance team with their own forecasting of different things. For example, we used to forecast our loss rates, and it was finance's job to actually forecast that. So according to Basel rules and whatnot, we actually then used to keep our reserves or release those reserves, and it was a big deal out there. As a data scientist or as a risk management professional, my role was actually not to replace those metrics, but more to enhance those metrics or enhance those models. For example, they were building their forecasting model in Excel, and I was like, okay, I can build a better model to actually predict this loss rate going forward rather than just a a standard linear prediction. Let's make it more this way, that way. So I think I am at loss in terms of guiding you the exact replacement for any metric, but I can definitely tap into my old network and figure out if there are courses or if there is something that my knowledge with that is slightly old and slightly stale, to be very open to you, more from finance, but I can definitely tap into my network and connect and understand, like, okay, are there better metrics they have moved on to or better methods they have moved on to, and if there are courses that can help everyone. So maybe I'll take this offline and get back to the group. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raj.
one last question. I'm bad at math, and can I still do data science? Okay, that's I generally invite everyone for data science. Like, it's open, but um, again, my question would be how bad you think you are bad, or you are really bad, and how objective subjective is that? So that's something you need to evaluate yourself, Harshit. Um, and as I said, people from philosophy and history and geography background are coming into data science and succeeding as ML engineers and whatnot. So it's worth trying. It could be right now, looking at this statement, I don't know whether you feel you're bad, or you're genuinely. But again, at the end of the day, it's something you can explore, and it's not like end of the world. There are so many other creative fields out there. If you think that your bent of mind is more for that, you don't have to fit yourself into data science. Having said that, um, I haven't seen any data science professional who doesn't have basic math background. At least, if not from the schooling, at least with the job they have acquired those skills. So if you're willing to learn and get better at math, then yes, data science is something you can do. All right. I'm just looking at my old question as well, meanwhile, in case I've left anything. I think more or less everything is done in some form or shape. So I guess, yeah, we have 4 minutes at hand. If not any other question, I'm just going to scrap through in case I missed any other question.
Rajulji, you talked about two things on your slide. One was for communication. The other was to develop your critical thinking. What advice do you have for our participants to develop those two skills? Because sometimes they're kind of ignored.
Precisely. And I mean, I kind of probably myself didn't emphasize that enough in this presentation, but thanks a lot for bringing that up. And thanks, I'll probably take one more minute to re-emphasize the importance of that. When I myself started my career, I thought like, okay, I'm technically more savvy with a heavy bent of, mathematical mind. So my reports were, very accurate. There were hardly any mistakes. My models were very good in terms of their, output. My strategies were to the point, but I was not good at communication with my partners. So what happens is that at the end of the day, it's a perception game, right? Like your partners would only understand the value of your output as much as they could understand, and the onus to explain them is on you as well. So I thank one of my ex-boss, like 4 or 5 years ago. He kind of, I worked with him very closely for a year or so, and by the time he really understood me, and then he kind of helped me bridge that gap. And one thing we kind of initiated in our own team was that next time any of our data scientists goes to a marketing leader and comes back, and generally it used to be a basic rant that, oh, we built this fancy model and we went to marketing and they're not ready to take it up because they didn't understand it. And this became kind of an excuse for everyone, like, okay, we did our job great, but the other people, who don't understand the math, they didn't understand it, so they're not using it. We told them like, okay, this is not going to happen anymore. It is your job to actually explain to them as well, people who are not from this math background. They are experts in marketing. Their hunch and their ways of doing things, it has a lot of value, and you have to sell your own product. So yes, communication is very, very extremely important, especially as you grow senior. You will talk to people who are not expert in data science, and that's where the complementary skill set would be there. So that's why you technically they are asking you, right? So if I'm talking to chief of marketing, I first understand what's the problem he has, and how he wants to better things. He has a business problem. I generally try to convert into a data problem, and most of these discussions evolve around metrics, like what kind of metrics they want to judge. For example, they say, oh, we have a lot of hodgepodge around our marketing funnel and we want to improve it. And my question would be, okay, how would you want to improve it? Do you want to improve your response rate from your marketing, or click through rate, or okay, people when they click through, they complete the application, so completion rate, or they complete the application but they didn't get the loan, so loan approval rate. So what is exact metric that they want to improve on? That also helps the marketing person to think, okay, now that data scientist has pushed me in terms of thinking more critically, more clearly in terms of exactly what bottleneck I want to drive. And that's when this guy who is your business partner will also be more critical in terms of clarifying their guideline. Okay, I want to focus on the top of the funnel and I want to convert click-through rate. Then you say, okay, now that you have figured out the problem, let me go back to my team and figure out pre and post and every kind of data and figure out how best we can improve your click-through rate. So that's the kind of conversation you need to have with non-data professionals, and that's the communication which is important. So every time you do your fancy analysis and use your avoid any kind of heavy statistical term. Sometimes it is important to actually show some value that okay, you have done a lot of hard work behind the scene, but most times you have to convert into a layman language to actually explain it to a business partner. Then only it's gonna fly. So yeah, I'll definitely say that critical thinking, as I explained, like pushing your partners also to think more clearly around metrics so that you can actually track those metrics and assess the success is more important.
Thank you, Rajali. Drovya says that he has one more question. I have one question.
Sure,
So,
go ahead. Sorry, Drovya, your voice is breaking up. I couldn't hear.
For giving me the permission to just. My question is, I am visible.
Yeah, you're audible.
Hello.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my question is, I am from finance background, and I have qualified CA intermediate, and I did a job in a manufacturing firm for around 2 to 3 months last year. And I just want to just start my career as a financial analyst. For that, I have did a course from a Russian university for around 1 month, basically, which is around financial modeling. Okay, so as a fresher, how can I start my career in this field?
I mean, yeah, for any fresher, my generic advice would be definitely to market your skill set. One is like acquiring some certain skill set that I believe you have already done, that you already done your courses, that you already, honed down like, okay, this is the field I need to go in. I think the best way would be to just market it better. And as I say, none of the, job is going to come to your plate. Most of the time you have to kind of fight it out. In job market, you have to always be on a selling mode. You have to sell your skills. You have to sell yourself in some sense, and you have to be comfortable with that. So, I mean, if I were in your position, I would actually just update my LinkedIn profile first thing. Secondly, I would start reaching to all my contacts, possible contacts, and their brothers and their sisters who are in this field, and share my CV. And another thing I would do is that talk to a few seniors in the field to actually look at my CV in a one-to-one basis and figure out at a high level if there is a problem. But again, many times I see people are stuck in just enhancing their CV. My goal is always to kind of get out there, even if it's imperfect. Just go there, talk to people, figure out, and some opportunity somewhere will fall in. So again, it may sound very generic, but it generally works for every kind of a field. And as I said, you've already done your coursework. Financial modeling is a great domain. A lot of work happens, in all kind of banking and financial companies. I am slightly away from finance sector from some time now, but I can also probably help you connect a couple of folks. But most likely, my connections may not be that great because I've been in New York for like 7 years now, and my connections are mainly here, and they look for people, for local hiring, like in US. I don't have many connections left in India finance sector, but I can try from my side, like at least send your CV to a couple of folks and see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Rajal. So may I have your email ID?
It's better that you guys, if anyone wants to reach out to me, if they reach out through LinkedIn, I'll definitely respond there. So that way we can figure out, how best we can go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rajal. Thank you, Sangayoji.
You're welcome.
Cool. I hope that's all. Have you ever thought for starting your own company in this sector? I believe every day, but the opportunity cost gets bigger every time I think about it. If I have to start a company, then I have to kind of think about replacing my current job as well after a certain time. and frankly, starting a company which kind of pays you $500,000 is like, it's going to take some time. So it's a question about, okay, are you willing to work extra to actually reach a replacement level of, income in certain time? And that's a question that is still unsolved in my mind. Maybe someday, but not right away. That's all, I guess. Thanks a lot, everyone, I would say. Yeah, there should be a model to answer that too. I think I should build that model someday. Right now, the model, actually, I have some inbuilt model. The ROI is definitely higher for a full-time job with, company like that. But yeah, maybe the model shifts in the other side someday, and my decision will shift accordingly. But thank you, everyone. And I guess we can end the session here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Rajuji. And when I heard you, I think it was in December, there was small interaction at the mentors roundtable, and I could see it so clearly that how passionate you are about, developing others and about mentoring. And it became so obvious. I am a very non-technical person, but even I got so much out of it. And I can tell you on behalf of everybody who is on that call that they must have immensely benefited from this session. My request to you is, most of my work with that I do is in the area of social projects, is that do give us a 2-minute recording of how someone can make the best of a mentoring session with you. And we would like to put it on YouTube. So when people, they come, they want to get mentored from you, they can listen to this 2-minute clip and they can maximize their interaction with you. I asked this from, all the mentors, just a 2-minute clip, 2-3-minute clip, because it will be very, very valuable so that we can maximize these interactions. These are rare. I mean, I wish all these opportunities were there when we were growing up, but it doesn't matter. If we can create it for people who are for the new generation, I don't think there's a bigger contribution than this. So once again, on behalf of everybody and on behalf of JPF mentorship program, I want to thank you so much for giving us your precious time on a weekend. You have a great weekend, and this is also being recorded. So we will send you the link on this too. And this will be put on the YouTube for the benefit of those who did not attend or who want to listen to it one more time. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.